8:35 right now, and as we've been telling you, right, the ongoing dry conditions have had some serious consequences. The biggest concern, the spread of wildfires across the entire area.
Yeah, in Queens alone, there have been more than 50 fires. So joining us now to discuss that as well as other happenings in and around Queens is Borough President Donovan Richards. So good morning, Borough President.
Good morning, Dan and
Thanks
Hazel.
for coming in this morning. So let's get right to it. Can you talk about the efforts right now to contain and even prevent these wildfires? Because a lot happening in your borough.
Well, climate change is certainly impacting our communities and our borough. And I'm working with the fire commissioner very closely, and we'll be meeting with him this week to make sure we can do some PSAs and also just strategize on ways to keep the wildfires down.
Yeah. What's happening right now, though?
I mean, so far, listen, over the weekend, I think we're doing okay, but we still have a lot of work to do. You know, we're also monitoring because sometimes we have people loitering across, so there's a location across the Jackie Robinson Parkway that we were alerted to. So we'll be talking to the fire commissioner more on these issues in a day.
And there's some welcome rain finally coming.
Yes.
That will hopefully help some of this, right?
Yes.
And it's going to be a long road for those drought conditions, though, because one rain isn't going to fix the issue, but at least it's something. Let's talk about right now congestion pricing and Governor Kathy Hochul's plan to unpause this now with a $9 toll. Some saying it is the right idea, some saying it is the wrong idea, the wrong time with inflation and the economy being top of mind for so many. Where do you stand on that? And what do you say to those who are having issues with it because of the economy?
Well, I'm happy that the governor certainly did decrease the amount. I thought 15 to start off was a lot. Yeah. So being that it will come down to 9, and assume that they're going to raise it in a few years. So if you start at 15, what is it going to be, $30 in the days to come or years to come? So listen, without a doubt, we have to invest in mass transit. More Queens residents are taking mass transit into the city as we speak this morning. So we do need to see investments in our infrastructure. We've been working very closely with the governor on the IBX, which will be light rail that runs from Bay Ridge to Jackson Heights. And more importantly, the MTA does need to spell out how will the investments in congestion pricing really benefit the borough of Queens.
You're for it?
So I am for it, yes.
So what about the folks who are saying, well, why do I have to pay to support the MTA, which has been mismanaging funds for decades?
Well, I think the difference here and before we co-signed on to supporting this was we needed a lockbox scenario, which means that the MTA will not be able to raid this fund to pay for ice skating rinks, as we've seen in the past. The other important thing to remember is that congestion is a huge problem, and we're going to pay for it. Think about the brush fires we're seeing now. Think about the torrential rains that really are impacting Queens when they come. You know, our communities get hit harder than any other borough. So we do need to invest in mass transit.
Okay.
And your constituents really rely on mass transit, and they're going to be dealing with a really tough shutdown come January, the A train shutting down. Can you talk about what commuters can expect and what alternatives are going to be provided for them?
So I just met with the MTA last week, and there will be shuttle trains that do run along the Rockaway Peninsula. So if you're on the Rockaway Peninsula needing to get around, you will have a train service. I was impacted by the shutdown maybe 12 years ago, I feel, and I did not have a car. It was probably easier to get to Florida by plane than Manhattan by bus and train. But the bottom line is we do need to invest in infrastructure. We do need to make sure that we flood-proof the tracks, because the worst thing that can happen is we see another storm and the A train is shut down indefinitely, as we saw after Sandy. So listen, we're pushing for more shuttle buses. We got an agreement. We're working with many of the school communities because children will be the most impacted. So we've requested the MTA to run buses specifically for the school community, and we'll continue to monitor it as it happens. But it's a necessary evil at this point.
Just real quick, how long will that last?
So they're saying 4.5 months, but I put it at 6 months in my mind. But the MTA says 4.5 months.
Okay, buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be a long 6 months for a lot of those residents, okay? You know, we've often talked to you about how Queens is such a melting pot, and there's so many immigrant communities. So I want to talk about right now the recent election of President-elect Trump and his vow now to do these mass deportations. Right now, the mayor has kind of commented on this, saying we can't do mass deportations, but we can't have mass saturation. What is your view on some of those folks in Queens who may be saying, well, I'm a little worried at what's going on here? Especially if they're an immigrant?
Oh, we've seen this before. You know, 50% of Queens residents are foreign born. And let's go back to prior to the pandemic, when ICE was raiding and showing up at people's homes. In my community that I represented at the time, the Rockaways, many of our residents were living in fear. They couldn't come outside. They locked themselves in for weeks, if not days upon days, because they were scared of these raids. So we're going to do everything we can to work with the legal community. Without a doubt, we have an issue with immigration. I hope the president and the Republicans who are in charge now, who pass the buck every year, are finally going to address comprehensive immigration reform. Let's start with that. But putting kids in cages is against our values. We do not want to see families separated, as we saw years ago, children being separated from their families and put in cages. We have to be humane and treat this with a sense of humanity and ensure that these children and families who've largely integrated into our borough are getting the services that they need.
Have you had families reach out to you already?
Well, I opened something called an Immigrant Welcome Center when I came in as borough president, because I recognize the challenges of immigration and connecting these communities who live in silos to services. So absolutely, we are getting calls. We're going to be doing a lot of work to educate people in the days to come early January, right before President Trump gets sworn in. We will certainly be holding educational forums with our immigrant communities across Queens.
All right, Borough President Richards, always great to have you here. Where'd you get this? I need this tie. That's a nice tie.
Oh, thank you.
We called each other.
Anything
and said,
that's
hey,
nice, my wife purchased. Anytime I leave the house and they say I look nice, I'm just like, well, my wife dressed me today.
Right.
Bravo, Mrs. Richards, bravo.
I'll have to call her up. All right, thank you very much for being here.